This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. Hi, I'm Huell, and this is the Civic Center of San Francisco. Now, right down there is the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. And this is the world-famous San Francisco Opera House, built back in 1931. You know, I think most of us are guilty of walking by these wonderful buildings every day and not really stopping to truly appreciate just how wonderful they are. Look up there at that Terra Cotta. Now, that's one of the things that makes this building so special. And Terra Cotta is exactly what this episode is all about, because we're going to visit a small town in Northern California and a company in that small town that's been making terracotta for literally thousands of buildings in small towns and big cities all over our state for over 120 years now, and they're still doing it the old-fashioned way. It's something to see, and if this piques your interest, all you have to do is come on along with us as we continue our search together for California's gold. Our destination was the pleasant little town of Lincoln, located 30 miles northeast of Sacramento in Placer County. Now, we were there to visit Gladding McBean and Company, that's been operating out of the same Lincoln location since 1875. Driving through the gate, I was prepared for an interesting tour of the place, but I had no idea just how special this experience would turn out to be. Because when you visit Gladding McBean, you are literally engulfed by a sense of our state's history. Where's my guide?
Right here.
You're the one.
Ready to go.
Well, we got a nice, cool day for it. It's only going to be 110 today.
Just 112. That's all. Be a piece of cake.
Can we take a look at the gentleman? We'll check back in with you later. Tell me a little bit about this place, Gladding McBean.
Okay, well, first of all, we're happy that you're here to visit Gladding McBean. Gladding McBean has been in continuous operation in this location since 1875.
Now, I want to interrupt you for just a minute, because this looks like 1875 right here. I mean, this looks old-timey.
Well, as you go through the plant, you're going to find out that a lot of it is old-timey. There are many things that haven't been changed since the plant originally opened its front gate. And the reason that it hasn't changed is because many of the things can only be done like they were done thousands of years ago, and that's making material from clay using handmade methods.
So there's a method that's been used, and it's been successful, and you've stuck with it.
Exactly, and that's the only way that we can do this task, and that's one of the reasons the Gladding McBean has been so successful and has the reputation that it does out in the architectural field.
Look at this great old building here.
Yeah, this is one of the early day buildings. It was built using material that Gladding McBean manufactured.
This clay, this tile.
Yeah, that's right. This is one of our product lines, I guess, if you want to say.
Now, when we came in, we drove by a lot of big pipes. Is that your specialty, one of your specialties?
Well, clay pipe, the sewer pipe that you saw out there, that's the primary production material, if you want to say the bread and butter of Gladding McBean. The glitzy stuff and the architectural stuff make up the smaller portion of it. Probably 75% of our production is devoted to clay pipe.
To the pipes?
To the pipes, yeah.
But of course, we're not here for the pipes.
You're here for the terracotta or architectural products that we manufacture.
We're here for the terracotta, the pretty stuff.
That's right.
That you've been putting on buildings in California for 100 years now.
Well, not only do we put them on buildings in California, we put them on buildings from the East Coast, and I'm working on projects in Japan and many places in between there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, now here we are at this place looks...
I guess this would be the entrance to the caverns. Maybe you could classify it as
the
that.
entrance to the caverns.
Yeah, and inside of here, it may look like it's an old rundown building, but there's a lot of activity going on that we'll be able to take a look at.
Okay, let's go. We're going into the caverns. Wow, this is an amazing room. Not only architecturally is it wonderful and has this wonderful feel to it,
Yeah,
but look at these things.
Well, these are some folks that we did for a project, and it was the Mabel Dean Bacon High School in Manhattan, New York. And they sent the pieces to Gladding McBean for us to reproduce and then manufacture a quantity of each one of these, and then we shipped them back.
Are these gargoyles?
Yeah, these are gargoyles, and each one of them represents different stages of knowledge, and they're installed under the cornice on the Mabel Dean Bacon High School. And these are just some pieces we had left over for...
We're never going to get through this room, because
We'll
everywhere I look at this.
Yeah, these are some plaques, or some models of plaques that were from various projects dating back to the early part of the century. And for buildings throughout the Pacific Northwest, Southern California, and it just goes on and on and on. Now this is an interesting light standard that you see right over there. That was made for, we made 80 of those for a bridge up in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada. Each one of these pieces are very intricate, hand glazed, very, very tedious type of work. All hand done up there. And
look at this up here, Louis, at the top. Oh, that's beautiful.
And not only did they use the terracotta, but we came back to using the pipe on this project also. These are sewer pipes that we glazed, and these were used as part of the railing assembly for the bridge.
And look over here. Everywhere you go, there are these huge, big seals.
New York City seal.
The seal of the city of New York.
That's right. This goes back many, many years ago that this was built.
And they're still ordering?
Well, no, this is just leftover pieces. Brooks Brothers Men's Clothing Store.
Oh, there's the Brooks Brothers.
That's the logo of the Brooks Brothers.
Sure.
It sure is. These pots right here go on a project that we completed down the corner of Rodeo Drive and Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. Wow. This guy over here,
look at this
eagle. It goes on a Great Lakes Naval Training Station above Chicago, up at Lake Bluff, Illinois.
When did you make that?
We made this in 1988, and
because it looks old.
Well, he originally was supposed to be sitting up on top of this building right here over the entranceway. The eagle had been completely removed. It had been gone for 40 or 50 years. The only thing that they had left over from it were some old black and white photos. They sent them to us, and then we modeled the eagle from a black and white photo. And now this is the eagle on its perch.
Back where it was supposed to be.
Back where it's supposed to be, and the eagle has landed. This is a piece right here from a column in Japan that we've recently completed.
Boy, you weren't kidding when you say you've got stuff now from all over the world.
Yeah, that's
These are all molds out here.
That's correct. These are all old molds.
Oh, look at these.
Beauties,
now,
right?
These are old.
Yeah, these are very old. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to find out exactly where these were used. And I've even talked to some folks. There's a gentleman who is a Gladding McBean historian. His grandfather retired from Gladding McBean. His father retired, and he himself retired. And maybe this is Father Sierra and part of the missions of California. I just can't tell you. They're very, very unique and very interesting.
How old are these things?
I would imagine they're probably in the neighborhood of 80 or 90 years old, if I was making a wild guess. These are the plaster models. Wow. This is the hand pressing department that we're in right now, and I'd like to take you over here so you can see the actual piece being manufactured. This is Humberto Miranda, the hand presser.
He's doing what?
Well, he's not just playing in mud. He's rolling out a piece of clay just like you'd be rolling out a piece of bread dough. And now that he's got the piece of clay rolled out and all the air pockets are out of it, and he's smoothing the clay down, he's ready to actually physically throw this piece of clay into the mold. And when I say physically throw it, I mean physically throw it. He hammers the clay down into every nook, cranny, and void, getting all the air pockets out of the piece. And the bottom of that mold is the design of the particular piece that he's manufacturing. He'll press all this material down.
And look, here's the clay over here.
This is the clay right here. And the clay is kept under wet burlap sacks covered with plastic so that it's still very, very pliable.
Sticky.
Very sticky. Moisture content is maintained at a pretty constant level so that it's pliable and workable, so that Humberto can do what he's doing, and he does this very, very well. Humberto has been hand pressing up here for about 9 years. He's been with Gladding McBean 14 years, which is actually that he's a low man on the seniority poll because longevity is pretty common at Gladding McBean. The assistant plant manager just rolled over 52 years with Gladding McBean. That's right.
So a lot of these guys out here have been here for a while.
Everybody, I think, has been here for a while at Gladding McBean. Most of these folks have got several years at Gladding McBean. The piece that you see right here is exactly what Humberto is pressing over there. And we are able to use these molds for repetitive pieces that continue on.
So now, how long will it have to sit in that mold before it comes out looking like this?
It'll stay in there for about 2 hours, depending on the size of the mold, the size of the piece, the outside air temperature, variables like that. And then the mold is turned 180 degrees, and it's complete.
What's he putting that cloth on there for?
Well, he's putting that cloth on there because he has a unique tool right here, and that tool is a sack filled with wet clay, and that's his mallet. And he uses that towel to get a smooth interior surface on his handmade piece.
So now that's been done that way for 100 years or longer.
I would probably say it's been done that way for thousands of years because there's only one way that you're going to be able to do this handmade piece of material, and that's make it a handmade procedure. You can't automate and make this mechanical.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But with this work comes a lot of satisfaction. And again, we come back to that same old topic we've talked about on other areas that you visited, is the feeling of pride that these guys have in their job.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you very much.
I got a sticky hand, but this is the good clay. This is the good stuff.
That's what.
Thanks a lot.
That's why Gladding McBean is here.
Wow. Now what's this guy doing over here?
Okay, he's working on a piece of material right here, and this piece goes on the Orpheum Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it's a restoration project.
He's getting water and just kind of...
Yeah, you know, one of the different things about this is that the tools of the trade for a hand presser are pretty unique in their own right. When Cruz needs something, and for every particular piece he needs a different object, then he may just get a stick and he'll cut a stick, and this will be the forming in for doing radiuses and working in small corners. Maybe he needs something else. It just doesn't. It's
so these are all kind of crafted specifically for the kind of work you do.
Every piece is different, so every job, every piece has its own particular
and
tool.
It's not exactly high tech.
You don't go down to the local hardware store and buy it. You make it yourself.
But I haven't seen a piece of equipment so far today. I've just seen a lot of guys working with clay with their hands.
Well, that's what it is. It's very labor intensive. And again, you're watching the hands of a craftsman.
What do you got going over here, fellas?
Okay, what they're going to do, I told you that Humberto was getting ready to turn a piece. You're going to be able to see him actually turn a piece.
Oh, okay.
And again, you're going to see that it's a physical job to do this.
Can we turn it?
They're going to turn it 180 degrees.
Now, why are they turning it?
Because the piece is upside down. Now the piece is right side up, and they're going to disassemble this mold from around the piece. So you're going to see the actual piece materialize right before your eyes.
Oh, oh. That's how a mold works.
That's how a mold works.
How long does it stay in there before they...
About 2 hours, 2.5 hours. This piece has probably been in there a little bit longer, probably about 3 hours, because it's a larger, more complicated piece.
Oh, that is beautiful. So it's like watching some wonderful piece of art being revealed when you take off these molds.
I guess you could call it the unveiling. Again, they have to be very cautious to disassemble that so that they don't destroy the piece as they're taking it apart.
Yeah.
And you can see that the piece has to be made in pieces to allow for them to disassemble it.
Yeah. Boy, this is something. This has been an education. Look at all of this stuff. I had never seen anything like this before in my life.
Next stop on our venture is into the archives of the modeling room. This is
Archives.
This is the historical highlight of your trip through the terracotta department. This is fantasy wonderland, I think is what you probably classify this
No,
as.
I'd call it a time capsule.
Okay, time capsule. We'll go live.
Look at this thing right here.
That's the RCA Master's Voice. In this room, back in the heyday, earlier part of the century, there were as many as 12 to 15 artists and sculptors that worked in this room and did the very fine, delicate work, huge masterpieces. And these easels that you see here were where the artists worked on. And when I say worked on, they literally worked on them, because as you can see these tracks in the floor and a chain hoist, these easels actually roll down these tracks, and the artists would be up on the easels doing their sculpting and modeling. That's the biggest
easel I've ever seen in my life.
Occasionally we have to use this. In fact, when we modeled the large eagle that went on the Great Lakes building, it was modeled on this easel right here. Now,
look.
What you have here is the model of the Fireman's Fund building that was supplied terracotta by Gladding McBean in 1914 in San Francisco. And this is the actual model of this beautiful piece. And unfortunately, the building has now been demolished and it's completely gone, and none of the terracotta has existed.
Remains.
This remains.
Now, could you make a model of this and replicate it and put it on another building somewhere?
Certainly could.
So,
yes.
So somebody who wanted to build a building and have the same terracotta that the Fireman's Fund building had could come to you and get the exact same piece of terracotta.
Just like we supplied it in 1914.
Oh, wow.
And made the same way that it was made then.
More of the, what do you call these things?
Well, these are medallions that would go on a wall. And we made some of these for a church down in Sacramento. And then, many of the structures, they'll use a piece of this for the artwork on buildings. Say in a brick wall or something of this nature.
Boy.
This area that you see here, back in the heyday, they had their own dark room, and they did their own developing of their photos. At one time, there were...
these books in here?
No, what these are, this was the storage of old glass plate negatives. There were over 10,000 glass plate negatives that were stored in here, and 3 people worked for a period of about 4 months cataloging these. And the owner of Pacific Coast, who owns Gladding McBean, Fred Anderson, donated these 10,000 glass plate negatives to the California State Library. And they're available for you and me and anyone who has interest and desire to go back and develop some of these photos from these earlier projects.
So over the years, Gladding McBean would photograph everything that they produced. So you've got a record of it all.
That's right.
Oh, gosh.
I'm
afraid to ask what these are.
Well, these are part of the Olympics. I think this probably dates back to 32 or something.
So these are on the Coliseum in Los Angeles?
That's correct, down in the Coliseum in Los Angeles, that's correct. Yeah.
Now this is old-timey. What is this?
This is the office of the modeler chief expertise, I guess is what you get. The last was used by Ernest Cadell. And Ray came on board as a youngster, And he learned from the real craftsman Ernest Cadell.
Now, I'm sorry, I don't recognize the name. Is that a famous name in terracotta and design?
In this area, it's a famous name, but outside of this area, it wouldn't be, because he was well known in the clay industry. So that would be sort of esoteric. It wouldn't be like common household name.
Yeah.
No.
But he's the guy who originally designed a lot of this stuff?
Yes, he did a lot of this work that you see in here. And
this was his office?
This was his office right here.
And were you his apprentice? Is that the way it worked?
That is correct.
So you all would come in here and sit down here and work out a design? Is that?
That's correct. We'd decide what we were going to do that day, and we'd go from there. We were the #1 name. In other words, if you saw terracotta, you were pretty sure it was made by Gladding McBean. There was no doubt about it.
So if we wander around the cities and towns of California,
yes,
and see terracotta on buildings,
yes,
the chances are it came from here.
I'd say the chances are about 80 to 90% that it would be from here. There are other little companies, but they're only about 10% of the business. So you can be pretty safe if you look at a building and say, that's Gladding McBean's work right there.
And not only Gladding McBean's work, but since you were here for 40 years, it's probably your work.
A lot of it is.
This area you're in right now, you can tell this is the cooking area.
Cooking area.
Yeah, this is where we're doing our firing, Huell. These kilns are used for firing large diameter pipe. This is a firing area. So you can see right here, we're walking by a kiln right now that's up to about 2,080 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And that'll pretty well cook this pipe. It turns the material into a vitrified or a glass-like material. And this is the reason that Gladding McBean has such success with their material, is because it's a high-fired material that turns it into this glass-like substance. So it's a ceramic piece of material.
Now these old kilns look like they're 100 years old too.
Yeah, they go back a long ways. There aren't too many new pieces of equipment here in Gladding McBean, but
you're still doing this the same way you did in 1874.
That's right. Be careful coming down there, Louis.
Oh man. What's he going to do?
He's going to knock that block out of the center of that door. He builds this door every time that the kiln is fired. He has to rebuild this door with blocks and with mud. So that's not a permanent fixture. He's going to cut that block out of there and draw. He's going to look in there for his samples.
Oh,
he determines what the kiln's condition is doing by the cones that he's firing down.
Woo!
You can see how hot that is in there.
Oh wow, that thing is red hot. Oh wow. And that's what you do with all your terracotta, with all your pipe. Everything gets that hot.
Everything gets that hot.
You've got a hot job. Oh man. Whoa. Well, I'm not sure exactly what I expected, but this is really, when you think about it, Gladding McBean and what you all have made here for the past 125 years has given California its look.
Well, you know, Huell, it has given California its look, but even today it's continuing on with a new look, because we've been able to participate in new projects such as the large project down on Rodeo Drive. We've supplied the material for the roofing of the Reagan Library, the Nixon Library, the Paul Getty Museum. So it's not only yesterday's look, but it's the look for California of today and in the future.
Tomorrow.
There it is.
Well, it's a part of our history, our past, and those old smokestacks and this old plant.
Tells a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're as much a part of tomorrow as they were of yesterday.
They sure are.
Wow. Well, it's been great. I guess we can just stand right here and look at the old plant, look at the old smokestacks.
Yeah.
And thanks for the tour.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
This has been great.
Pleasure, all right?
It's just been great.
Good enough.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our trip back in time to the old Gladding McBean company in the little town of Lincoln. Maybe from now on, when we're walking down streets like Market Street here in San Francisco, and we get to the old Hearst newspaper building at Market and 3rd, or we pass the landmark City Hall building in downtown LA, or countless other buildings in small towns and big cities across our state, we'll stop and take a closer look and truly appreciate this beautiful Gladding McBean terracotta, which makes all of these buildings such perfect examples of California's gold. Until next time, I'm Huell Hauser. Goodbye, everybody. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.